Allah, today our lesson is about PHP loops. PHP loops. So, what's loop? Anyone? What's loop? Yeah?
Loop is handy, we can say, sir, when we want to use one code repeatedly, we use loops in our code.
We use loops in our code. When we want to do a task repetitively, when we want to run or execute some commands repetitively for too many times, and that time we use loops. Loop is one of the main concepts of programming. In PLSQL, we learn it loops, basic concepts of loops. That was another concept. We need to write loop. But in here, we have kinds of loops. We have kinds of loops. You may study this one on C++ and Java also. But in PHP, we have another type. So, PHP loops. Often, when you write code, you want the same block of code to run over and over again and a certain number of times. So, instead of adding several almost equal code lines in a script, you can use loops. What it means, sometimes you need to do some task repetitively, too many times, or a certain of times, or until the condition is true, the task should be executed. But how we can achieve that? How we can achieve that goal? We can achieve it using the loops. In PHP, we have loops like this. We have while, do while, for, and for each. We have 4 types of loops in PHP. Those are while, do while, for, and for each. So while loops have a block of code as long as the specified condition is true. We don't have a certain time in while loop. In while loop, we don't have a certain of time. It runs until the condition is true. Do while is the same concept, but even if a condition is false, it runs once. So what says? Loops have a block of code once and then repeats the loop as long as the specified condition is true. So runs the block of code once without checking the condition. Then checks the condition. If the condition is true, runs again. And repeats up to condition is true. But first time runs once. Runs one time and then checking the conditions. Another is for loop. For loop is a loop that loops have a block of code a specified number of times. We specify how many times the code should be executed. And the for each is loops have a block of code for each element in array. We use for each for arrays. Why? Because when we are looping on arrays, we use for each loop. It runs until the array has elements. When the array elements finish, the loop stops too. So, we speak about each of them. First one, PHP while loop. The while loop, as we said, loops block of code when the condition is true. Runs until the condition is true. The PHP while loop executes a block of code. As how much? The syntax is like this. You need to have a variable. Says that print I as long as I is less than 6. Prints I as long as the I is equal to or less than 6. Condition is true. So how we can write this? How we can achieve it? Let's this code be run it. We need to write that first variable like I. I is 1. Yeah? I is 1. Or it's something else. So we need to write while, then our condition I. What the fuck? While I is less than 6 or something else, less than 9. What should do? Echo $, the I is, the value of I is dot, let's me calculate like this, $I, then a break line, so we use like this to print that, and then the next line we need to increment it. We need to do I plus plus or I minus minus according to logic we want to write. So now it runs our I up to times that I is less than 9, not 9, less than 9. Okay, let's start. So the value of I is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, but not 9. Why not 9? Because we said less than 9, not equal to 9. We can do the vice versa of this. I is 10 and runs up to I is greater than 1, and then it will be minus minus. Why? Because we are coming from top to down. We are coming from top to down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. That's the vice versa of increment and decrement. When PHP operators, we didn't spoke about increments and decrements. So the increment decrement uses in here. We can use increment decrement with using the for loops or while loop or do while loop or for each. Sorry, not for each, but and others we use to increment our numbers or to execute some conditions according to increment or decrementation. So this is the basic syntax of while. We need a variable, then we need to test that variable against different conditions. Until this condition is true, this statements will execute. But if conditions comes false, it will stop. As we see here, it started from 10, ended to 2. Why? We said when it is greater than 1. But sometimes people create infinity loops. How? This we said greater than 1. Then we made 10. If I put plus plus in here, it will go infinity. See? It will go continuous. And crash my PC if I let it go. Yeah, see? Up to end of this, in only 1 second, it went up to 2,000. 320,000. 320,000 times. This is called infinity loop. Avoid using this. Define your conditions correctly. Define conditions and use increment and decrement wisely. See, I defined my conditional greater than 1 and then I used plus plus, so it will start from 10, continues up to infinity. Why? The number is greater than 1. When you are coming from top to down, you need to use the minus minus. But if you are going from down to top, then use plus plus. No, condition is correct. Just now see, only up to 2. Condition is correct now. Why? Because I use it minus minus. Now I start from 10 and comes up to 2. The 1 is not included. Why? We said greater than 1. Greater than 1. So that's the for loop. While loop, sorry. And says remember to increment I or else the loop will continue forever. Increment correctly. The while loop does not run a specific number of times. In while loop we don't have a specific number of times. We have condition. It runs up to conditions 2. When condition comes false, it will stop. And also you can use break statement here. You can use break statement. When in a specific range your I reaches, you can stop it. You can stop it. It should not continue. How? I'm checking this and I'm saying if $I equal to 4, then what? Break. If I reach 4, it will stop. When I reach 4, it will stop. It will go to 2 and 3. Another statement, you have continue statement. That's somehow not important to use it because loops continues. You continue the loop in some statements. On some steps you continue. If reach 3, continue. You can continue, you can stop it. But I think it's not important. Stop and jump to next iteration of history. So it will continue another piece. Alternative syntax for while. We have an alternative syntax. Which syntax? Instead, syntax of PLSQL. Syntax of PLSQL. You can use the end while. We had end loop. In here you can use the end while, but you must put a colon here instead of the curly brackets. Instead of curly brackets, you must put this one. Instead of this one, you need to put comma. And then instead of this, write end while. End while. Oh, sorry, semicolon. Now it works the same. It will work the same. You can use this way or the curly brackets. And I think the curly brackets much better and much readable than this one. Step 10. Step 10. That's one of incrementing. You can put any value, not only 10. You can put any value to increment and decrement. Like I want to have a 100 and want to decrease by 10 numbers. Decrease by 10 numbers, not only 1, 1, 1. I can decrease it with 10 numbers. 100, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, after this. That's the step 10. And also increase by 10. Increase by 2, increase by 5, increase by 6. Any number that you wish. That's on you. So, not enough, sorry, because we are too much.
Sir, how can we use with infinity?
Sorry?
Infinity. When we want to block of code execute it infinity, most of.
Sorry, your question is not clear.
Server with infinity, while loop with infinity.
While loop with infinity? The thing that we work at that infinite type of run.
Yes, sir.
When you misconfigure your while loop,
How
when
can
you we worked on that last seconds. See, I have 100, and instead of minus I say plus. Now it go infinite. It will go infinite. See, it continues. It continues after running. Yeah. If I stop it, let's see the last one. This is the last number.
How can we stop? How can we answer?
We can't end this. You must close the process. Stop the process. I stopped the process from here. It was loading. If I refresh this, now it keeps loading. See here? It keeps loading. Why it keeps loading? Because my loop is infinitive. I can stop it here and see how much this went. It was running up to this much number of times. You should avoid how? First, declare a correct condition. Then use the correct increment or decrement. Use the correct decrement and depending on your condition. You are increasing or decreasing. You are decreasing or increasing. Use the increments, avoid using that one. So the next one is the do while loop. Do while loop has the same syntax, but it runs once. It runs once. It runs once and then continues. How? Let's have this on here and let's do it. You write do. You write do. Then the block of code like echo $I. And also you do plus plus in here, not in the while loop. Do I plus plus. Then you write while here. While I is greater than or less than. Like let's do greater than because our I is 100 and greater than 1 and do it here minus not plus plus. So let's see. Now we have the while loop. If you check here, we have 100, 90 and minus 1. Why minus 1? I is greater than 1. I minus. So it's coming to, I think it's crashed, something like that. Let's define another variable for this, like j, and equal to 1, and increase it, not decreasing. And then when it's lower than like 9, lower than 9. Now it runs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It runs. Why it printed 9 also? Why it printed 9? Anyone?
Because we.
Oh, sorry, I mentioned the I here instead of J. I'm printing the I instead of J. Let's do J. That's why that comes. Now we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 and 9. Increase it. Why 9? Because it printed 9 for us. Why? Because once it ran it. So when once it runs, it executes the tasks. It prints the
do I look first do them?
In do while first this block executes.
Then check the condition.
Then checking the condition, what condition it is.
Okay.
Once it runs, and then comes to condition. Once runs and then comes to condition. It says in a do while loop, the condition is after executing statements within the loop. It runs once and then checks. So we have break statements and continue statement also in this one. The next one is for loop. These are the repetitive lessons. You learn it on C++, on Java also. So for loop is difference with loop, while, and do while is that we run on a specific number of times. We run on a specific number of times. Syntax is easy. You write for, then your expression, then your condition and statement. Expression 1 is once evaluated, once expression 2 is they will evaluate it each time the iteration, and the last one is also it. In first expression we put our initial value, and second expression we put condition. In third expression we put increment and decrement. Here's an example. X starts from 0. X runs up to 1. X is lower than 10. X is lower than and X plus. The same way, but in a different syntax. For. So let's see. The number is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10. This is the for loop. And also you can use the break statement, the continue statement also, and also step 10 and for loop also. These are much easier because you already learned this. You have worked with this. That's why we learn it a little bit faster. But for anyone that doesn't know that the looping is for repeating the same task too many times. Executing a task too many times, repetitively. Any points on this?
No points.
No points sleeping, guys? Anything to hit him? That's great. Anything that doesn't hurt him? Let's do it this AirPods of Mr. Yahya. You're sleeping in the class. You're sleeping. I'm shouting that anything sleeping, guys, and still you're sleeping. That's not good. So the next loop is for each that we will learn on Wednesday, inshallah. So good luck.